Well, Hannah, thank you for joining us. You're our Director of Paid Media here at Threepipe. Obviously, it's a busy time.
It's very busy.
As we come into peak season that starts essentially today.
Yes, well, start of October. We even had some people launch Christmas at the start of September. So we're already into peak, I would say, heading into it.
And how are you seeing it being different from last year or the year before? I mean, every year's unique, but what are you seeing this year?
This year we're seeing, I guess, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people not knowing what's going on. Like you say, it's completely different year after year. And this year, I think, because we're not in a lockdown, we don't really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of constantly checking against last year. What are the trends? What happened over the whole of the quarter? And so that is on a sort of bigger scale at the moment, just looking at that in a lot more detail as we head into November and December.
And is there much value comparing year on year, because the last 2 or 3 years have been so different from each other, right?
Yeah, I think you have to find out where your benchmark is and what you've been doing so that you have a comparison. Otherwise you're going a bit blind. So still a lot of year on year, allowing for the adjustments that have been made in tracking and privacy. So it's sort of year on year, quarter on quarter trends constantly.
Yeah, and I guess the media plans even this year will look so different from what they did 12 months ago.
Yes, I mean, you've still got your big players in there. People are still heavily investing into paid search because ultimately that is where people are going to go to purchase, especially with our sort of retailers. Paid social is always on the plan. We're seeing a lot more of our paid social plans not be so focused on Meta. A lot of people are branching out, into testing the water in Snapchat, a lot going into TikTok. I think that's really come into its own. The platform has got a lot more sophisticated. And so a lot of people sort of saying, okay, well, Meta CPMs are quite high. How can I sort of get reach in other places?
Okay. And in terms of data, I mean, how are we using data to inform our planning and again, not real time, but in more sort of, I guess we're having more and more conversations with clients on a more regular basis.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things we're looking at all the time. Audience sizes on these platforms. So who are the audiences we're going after? What is the capability for these platforms and how much can we spend in them? Making sure that any sort of first party data, so CRM lists, using those for lookalikes, exclusions, keeping those up to date because it's constantly evolving. And just looking at benchmark data, where are our clients with other clients and sort of getting the platforms to give us more information so that we can sort of assess the lay of the land, really.
And something we're talking more and more about with clients is creative.
Yes.
So tell us how you're working with creative, quite closely with our own creative team.
Yeah, so I think the stat is 56% of your performance is all about creative. And this year is like no other. You need to be agile. You need to sort of constantly be viewing and assessing how creative works. A/B tests are really important. Incrementality studies on creative, like which creative works best, which formats work best. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and each client is slightly different in their audiences and their brand. I think for me, it's keeping your brand element there, but not being too afraid to test different creative executions because the platforms are very different, and so you can't have one creative on TikTok to Meta to Snap. It doesn't work like that. So you need to make sure that you have enough resource in your creative to allow you to be flexible, I think.
And there seems to be more sort of purchasing moments over peak season than ever before, and some international ones creeping in, like Singles Day.
I think Singles Day has been floating around, and we've had a few campaigns, I guess, for the last 6 years for Singles Day, but this year is probably the first year that I've had nearly all our e-commerce retailers say Singles Day we're doing a promotion, and I think that's only going to get bigger. I think also with the challenges with delivery we've got at the moment, people are thinking, okay, let's go a bit earlier, let's make sure we sort of get some of those early sales in, and then we always have Black Friday to I guess bolster our performance.
And Q5 is something that's becoming more important as well.
Yes, Q5. So period of Q5 is between Boxing Day and January, so that period in between Christmas and New Year. It tends to be where we see cheaper CPMs because there's less people in the auctions. It's definitely something that you shouldn't shy away from in terms of keeping a bit of budget behind. It's something that we find clients get nervous and we pull money out of that, but it's definitely you get cheaper CPMs, people have had money for Christmas, so there tends to be a bit of that sort of flexible income coming in there.
And testing, is peak season a time for testing, or should you have done your testing going into peak season?
Bigger tests need to be done before you go into peak, because actually the results that you get out of in peak are not always going to be exactly the same as what's going on. So you almost need two testing strategies: a testing strategy for peak and what works, and a testing strategy outside of peak. It's still worth testing A/B tests, especially in October, and get some learning as you head into Q4. And I think the main thing is just make sure you have different variations and able to turn things on and off moving into it.
And this year again we have the curveball of there's a World Cup happening in Q4. There's an England game actually on Black Friday for the first time ever.
Yeah.
How are we approaching that?
I think you need to be monitoring it so closely more than ever. You need to start early, looking at your impressions, looking at what's going on, looking at how much spend you're getting through earlier on in the day. There's two schools of thought. Either people are going to be on there early and then they're going to watch the game later, or actually we're going to get a lot of second screeners, which means that you're going to get a lot of delivery later. It's probably going to be a mixture of both. So it's monitor it hourly, day, like minutely if you can.
Yeah. And Black Friday is not just a day either, is it? It starts early anyway.
Yes, it does, but I think the day is always, there is always more hype on the actual day because it is Black Friday. So I think you just need to keep an extra close eye on it moving forward.
So we've created a guide that's packed full of
Yes.
actionable tips for heads of e-com and digital to think about how to approach peak season, and that's all in our show notes. So
Yes.
thank you very much, Hannah.
Thank you.